After being hailed as the next face of the Warriors, Jordan Poole's first year following a massive contract extension didn't go well, and now he finds himself on the Washington Wizards in a deal for Chris Paul. While it didn't go as planned for many reasons with Golden State following his promising run as a team's sixth man on a title team, this is far from the end for Jordan Poole. In fact, it's just the beginning. I love this for Jordan Poole. He ends up in a situation that best suits him and his potential to grow as a player. And I expect big things from Jordan Poole in the future with this team. I think the perception of Poole has taken a massive hit due to how noticeable his mistakes on the court can be, his drop-off in the playoffs, and that Draymond Green incident as well. I'm not giving Poole a pass for his play this season. His shot selection and decision making were inconsistent at best and downright awful at worst. It clearly frustrated Steph, Clay, and Draymond, especially Draymond. He had moments that cost his team the game, and those mistakes were why he didn't have a consistent role in the playoffs. However, I still view Jordan Poole very highly. I still believe in him as much as I did when he had that run during 2022 in the finals and got that contract extension. Because it wasn't all bad for Poole. He averaged a career-high 20.4 points per game while playing the same amount of minutes as he did the year prior, a career-high 4.5 assists per game, a career-high 5.1 free throw attempts per game, and he was still relatively efficient with a 57.3 true shooting percentage, which was slightly below the league average, but not terrible. While numbers don't tell the full story, because he did have a bunch of mistakes on tape that were very frustrating and downright confusing at times, and I do understand the Warriors' frustration with him, especially given what the Warriors were aiming to get to this season. He did show the signs of the potential star guard he showed the previous season, and while it's not as simple as a 23-year-old averaging 20 points a game on a playoff team equals future star, the context is much deeper than that. I do believe his production while playing on a team that made the playoffs is at the very least enough for me to believe that the potential is still there. Poole is still a very talented player. Yes, he has his mistakes when dribbling. Sometimes he just forgot how to dribble this season. Yes, he takes dumb shots, but the talent is still very evident. He still has unreal creativity as a creator on tape. He still has that deep shooting range. He's still an incredible shot creator. And 33.6% from 3 isn't great. I wouldn't even say it's good. It's below the league average. I think you usually want to see guys at around 35% at the least to consider them a good shooter. But you look at the volume he was taking them on, degree of difficulty, and the amount of bad shots he was taking, and 33.6% under that context is still promising to me. I'm not saying he's Steph Curry. I'm not saying that he's Damian Lillard. But what I am saying is 33.6% when you take that many bad shots is a sign that it's more about your decision making and shot selection than it is about your ability as a shooter. I still think he is a good shooter. I don't think the dribbling turnovers were as much about the rule changes either. Those rule changes that they suddenly stopped caring about like halfway through the season. But regardless of that, the dribble turnovers this past season don't line up with what he was getting away with in 2020. So I don't think it's about losing abilities, or maybe it's like a fake season where he just caught fire. I don't think that's the case. I don't believe you just lose abilities like the ones Poole has, because the abilities Poole have aren't based around just catching fire. They're based around sustainable traits like dribbling, creating, body control, flexibility, things like that. Things that you either have or you don't. And I do think Poole showed the abilities he's shown through his first 3 seasons this season as well, even through his mistakes. You don't average 20 points a game without abilities, especially ones like Jordan Poole's. He still has unreal flexibility. He's one of the most flexible players in the league. He has really good body control, though he can be clumsy at times. On top of that, I think he's a solid passer. Not a great one, not someone you say, you're the point guard, you're the primary playmaker. But I do think he can give you 5 to 6 assists per game in the right situation. He does have his lumps and lows, but I think he has his highs as well. And I think he has more highs than what was led on based off the amount of tape I watched this season. And I do understand why the lows were focused on as much as they were this season. First of all, they were hilariously noticeable on tape. Second of all, the Warriors were trying to contend, and when you're trying to contend, your mistakes are magnified significantly. And Poole's mistakes being ones that potentially cost his team games led to his mistakes being the focus. I don't blame Warriors fans for focusing on it. That's the nature of how players playing big minutes are viewed on contenders. But it also made me realize something. The Jordan Poole problem wasn't a talent or ability problem. It was a situation problem. Poole is still very young. He's only 24. He was 23 this past season. He had expectations to take a leap, especially after what he showed in 2022. But it's different when you're having that first breakout season. You're waiting for Klay Thompson to come back and you're filling in his shoes as the guy replacing the all-time great two guard that's won multiple titles for your team, and you are his replacement until he comes back from injury. And honestly, on top of that, the Warriors weren't viewed as title favorites until the final few months of the season. So I do think that led to the focus being more on what Poole was doing well. Compare that to now, where they won the title. The other teams know how good you are now. You signed that massive contract extension. You have a target on your back, and now you are expected to contribute to a team that is looking to repeat as NBA champions. That's different. I think it affected Poole's focus and play. I think the massive amount of criticism whenever he made a mistake affected him. It was different than being the bright young rising star that took a massive leap. And what was lost in all of that is the fact Poole is still a very young player. He's gonna have his mistakes, and I think Poole is viewed differently in another situation. He was coming off a near 19 point per game, 3 rebound, 4 assists per game, 62 shooting percentage season in year 3 and got a massive extension because of it. But if he was on a rebuilding team rather than a contender, and in year 4 put up 23-5 on 57 true shooting percentage, I think he's viewed differently. I think he would still be talked about as a bright young talent instead of a massive letdown, especially in a situation where he would get to play through his mistakes with fans being more understanding of those mistakes. That's no criticism or any sort of shot at Golden State Warriors fans. I understand all the criticism and frustration they had with Poole. They were trying to contend. They needed him to play better. And playing through mistakes isn't a recipe in contending either. So I don't fault Warriors fans at all for how they felt about Jordan Poole. But now in Washington, Poole will be able to play through his mistakes. He will be a starter. I think that goes without question. He likely will be the starting two guard. He's way more proven than Johnny Davis or any other two guard currently on the Wizards roster. And I also think that getting Poole and Tyus Jones means that they're gonna lean towards drafting a wing or a big in the draft. I think that actually his fit with Tyus Jones is perfect, because Tyus can play well with anyone, and he's a steady presence. But Poole in general does have a lot more freedom. He won't have expectations to win or contend. I think that allows him to play through mistakes more. And that's what he needs for his development the most. Being able to play through those mistakes. Being able to play without worrying about expectations of contending. Worrying about your mistakes rightfully. I'm not saying they weren't rightfully magnified, but they were magnified whenever he made them. I think not having to worry about that will do wonders for him. I think he will have a really good season upcoming. I wouldn't be shocked if he was a 25 point per game, 5 rebound per game, 5 to 6 assists per game player. I don't know about the efficiency, but I think he could be around, 57 to near 60 true shooting percentage. And again, that will be, if it does happen, it's not guaranteed if it does happen, but if it does, it will be because of being in a situation that fits him a lot better, especially for his development. And I think we could see a player that's a lot closer to what we saw in 2022 than what we saw in 2023.